Hey dudes, the patch 0.4 reveal was earlier today. GGG dropped the patch notes right after the Ziggy D Q&A, and we went through all of that on stream. So this is just going to be like a recap of the important stuff, but first be sure to like and subscribe. Over 2/3 of our viewers aren't subs, so go ahead and do that. It helps more people see our content, which helps us keep doing this. And join our Discord as well, we've got a great community. Okay, so let's just go ahead and start with the big thing that everybody's talking about. I initially was going to bump this to third, but whatever. It's Druid. Everybody's interested in Druid. There are going to be 3 forms for Druid. Bear, everybody saw that coming. Wolf, everybody saw that coming. If you have Druid, it's going to have Bear and Wolf. And then the thing everybody's a little surprised by, Wyvern. It's sort of like a hybrid caster and melee DPS with like kind of a better ranged component to it. Sort of like a Spellblade, Wyvern, Dragon, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure there will be some Dragon MTX at some point or something Dragon-ish. There's some comboing going on, some charge generation and spending. It's interesting, however, as you can see from some of the reveal footage, we can kind of show this later on in the reveal footage, you know, and they even mentioned this in the Q&A, that damage is not great. So, don't really know that this is actually like bad damage or anything. Obviously, this isn't even Druid, this is Sork. There were maybe some concerns just about the damage because the numbers are not insane, but the look of the classes is really cool. We want it to be good, but so far, honestly, we just don't know. Like, we do have the big reveal page here, and you can kind of see some of the damage on some of the hits. The scaling is not amazing. You know, like 70% on Furious Slam is the damage. It goes up to 110 if you're enraged. You compare that to like Rolling Slam, which I think is like 90 and 180 for the first and second hit. It's also incredibly slow, which this is not as slow as Rolling Slam, but it's not super fast either. So I don't know. We'll have to see, especially as we get more information. But Druid looked very cool, but maybe a little underwhelming numerically. Again, don't want to judge too quickly. Then the second thing that we want to talk about here, and this is really kind of the big one, sort of buried it a little bit, is during the Q&A, Mark talked about how there maybe kind of sort of could be some Pathfinder buffs, and I mean, my jaw just like fell off of my face when I came down here and actually looked at what they had planned for Pathfinder. Absolute most important thing, they talked a bunch about Pathfinder, kind of made it sound like they buffed the hell out of it, so let's take a... Oh my god, he buried the lead. Wow. They're getting rid of the built-in spreading, which you might go like, oh no, but now it's just, that's basically 2 free points, 2 Ascendancy points, so you just don't have to spend on Pathfinder now. You can just use Herald of Plague, so that's fine. Roa also, if we look at Roa has been nerfed again. It's back to the way it was before, so Roa's kind of just gone again, which is fine. Ultimately, that's not really a problem. That just means that like you running assault now, and now it grants immunity to heavy stun while sprinting, so you could just sprint all the time on a Pathfinder and it's fine. Also, running assault, it gives you, if I could get over to running assault here, running assault is a skill that gives you 50% less move speed penalty from using skills while moving, right? So now you're not having to spend 4 points to come over here and double your poison damage with overwhelming toxicity. It's only 2. You get it right off the bat with your first Ascendancy, so you'll do way more damage on Jamin Ra, which is great. That's the hardest part of the entire campaign, I think, on the Pathfinder, so that's sorted. Now you're, like, immune to being knocked down while sprinting, so you can just sprint through everything all the time. This bonus, Practical Remedies, which is terrible, is completely gone, so you can get easy access to sustainable practices, which obviously, the build I have set up here is terrible, but normally it's very good, so that's an option. And then there's some other really good stuff here as well. Pathseeker is a new bonus that replaces Traveler's Wisdom, and I'll just kind of, you know, show that off. You know, it's Traveler's Wisdom being this bonus that gives you 5 passive skill points. Instead, it's going to give you 4, but it'll allow you to allocate from the Sork or Warrior starting point. So I don't think this will really synergize with the way that we would be setting up Poison Pathfinder. Like, I think that this might just be kind of out for the way that we're going to be running it. Maybe not, but we're not going to take advantage of starting it at the Warrior or Sork starting point. But this means that, like, theoretically, you could level as Pathfinder up to the first Ascendancy and then essentially just turn into, like, a full Strength build or a full Sork build. Do that, but as a Pathfinder that is, like, slow immune and able to sprint everywhere all the time and has poison stuff. That's sort of the issue here, right? Is poison is kind of the only way to scale damage in an awesome way as a Pathfinder, and it works super well for Poison Pathfinder. Otherwise, kind of have to figure that out. So those seem like good second build options if you wanted to play around with doing like a dexterity int character or something like that. Then there's a new bonus after that, after Traveler's Wisdom, or I should say after this like Path of the Warrior, Path of the Sorceress, the new version of Traveler's Wisdom allows you to change, instead of getting like +5 int, +5 dex, +5 strength on your travel nodes, you can get 5% increased damage, 5% global defenses, or 5% increased cost efficiency. I don't think that last one is too great. I'm sure there's somebody who can find a use for it, but like if you could convert like 15 travel nodes into global defenses, that's like 75% global defenses. That's preposterous. So Pathfinder's gone from being like kind of not so great to being like absolutely goated. Like I'm frothing at the mouth, Mountain Dew, Cheeto fingers, all of that stuff. I'm ready to rock with Pathfinder. Maybe, we'll see what Druid news there is in the coming week. Ultimately, we're going to be talking about it and kicking it around over the coming week, but Pathfinder looks real good. All right, I got into editing and realized I hadn't mentioned toxic growth. So this will look, in PoB, this is going to be a nerf. This isn't a nerf. Basically, what they're doing with toxic growth is instead of it firing 8 pustules at a time and having a cap of 8, which means if you fire 2 in a row too quickly, you just do literally no damage with your second attack. Now it's going to be 4 at a time, cap of 8. Very easy to stack up 12 at a time then before a boss spawns, and then throw down gas arrow or whatever to like pop them all at once. This also means that like the potential of missing with them, like 8 pustules kind of spread out a lot. 4 is going to spread out less than half as much, and so it's going to be way easier to hit with all of your pustules, and still going to be able to have the same number of poisons up at a time. So this is really just like an improvement on like the performance, the ease of use, and if anything, this is just kind of a buff. And it kind of makes attack speed a little bit less of like a dead stat for this build. It still isn't really like a DPS increase, but it does make you feel good to like run and gun faster, but it doesn't help with bossing. Now it kind of helps with like getting ramped up a little faster on bosses. There were 2 other changes that weren't like super important here, but I'll just mention them as well. Voltaic Mark is basically just gone. Voltaic Mark applies now to like electrocute chance and stuff instead of shock. We don't care about that, so that's dead. And then Stormcaller Arrow, if I can find it, if I can spell it, there we go. Stormcaller Arrow now just like works a little better. Makes you shock as though you're dealing more damage, so it's easier to get big shocks on enemies. So you could probably just start using that like halfway through the campaign, early in the campaign even. Really though, your shocks probably aren't going to last long enough until you're like in mapping for it to be worth bothering with. That's kind of the way we had the build set up thus far, but yeah, ultimately they're just kind of making the class like even easier to play and stronger. What a blessed life, right? Also, we just wanted to touch on Deadeye. Deadeye has gotten a little bit of a nerfage. Wind Ward was just this bonus here that really doesn't get used a lot. 3% less damage taken per Tailwind. Don't feel like that's super important. That is gone entirely, but more importantly, Tailwind is now 1% move speed, 2% skill speed instead of 3, 10% evasion rating instead of 15, 1% of damage reduced from deflected hits per stack, but then as soon as you get hit, you lose Tailwind, so you do have to deflect for it to actually give any DR. So all that being said, Deadeye took a little bit of a hit, and there's a bit more stuff to cover on that as well. Lightning Rod, if I can spell it correctly, is, it's got some downsides now. The interactions with Lightning Arrow, first of all, only able to get 10 Lightning Rods down at a time instead of 20. This won't matter for like early leveling, but it does reduce your potential damage cap at the end game, and then also it no longer, like Lightning Arrow no longer bypasses that charge up time on Lightning Rod Burst, which you may have forgotten that this even exists, but there is like a small period if you chain lightning damage with any other skill to Lightning Rod. There's like a small charge up, and that's going to be the case for Lightning Arrow once again. But with that being said, if you convert more Fizz to Lightning, previously it was 40, now it's 80, 100% of the beams, the chaining beams to nearby enemies when you hit with a Lightning Arrow. So it's sort of a buff to Lightning Arrow as a clearing skill, and actually a single target skill, and a pretty big nerf to Lightning Arrow's interaction with Lightning Rod. So Lightning Arrow is still usable, still good. Herald of Thunder got a small nerf, but that's kind of it, right? Like, there wasn't really a ton of other changes. The Herald of Blood and Herald of, Poison Pathfinder interaction was technically destroyed because Pathfinder doesn't get built-in poison spreading, but you can run Herald of Plague and Herald of Blood together, and those will spread and propagate with each other, and they'll work just fine, I think. We'll see. Maybe they won't, but either way, if that is nerfed, then that just means it's even easier to make Pathfinder work spirit-wise. You don't need Roa. You don't need Herald of Blood, but it was nice, so that's pretty much it. Like, it's just easier to gear up Pathfinder now, and it's stronger at high gear levels too, which is all great. There weren't a crazy amount of Titan changes either, just to kind of point out, like, the 3 build guides that we have up on MOBA are like an in-game Poison Pathfinder that we've talked about before. We have a recently posted leveling Poison Pathfinder that we'll do a little bit of iteration on, but it's actually in really good shape. And then Titan is the other one, and Titan is still great. We did that as our league starter last league. It rocked, it was super fun, and it's just gotten better this time around because there is a new Druid spell called Volcano that they get at level 1. No stat requirement or anything, you just throw it down on the ground, and if you slam near it, it shoots out some extra fire projectiles, and guess what slams? Warrior. Rolling Slam, you throw a Volcano down, Rolling Slam all over it, it's going to spit out a bunch of extra fire damage. Seemed like a really, really good combo. I think their plan is for you to slam around it with Furious Slam as a bear. I think that might actually be worse. I think throwing the Volcano down and then hammer slamming, hammer jamming is going to wind up being stronger. So that's like the one thing that we'd be changing about our Titan. And honestly, just in looking at bear form and stuff, that seemed like the most exciting parts of the Druid's kit right now. Not knowing any numbers, really, and Titan Bear kind of seems better than what little bit we got to see of the 2 Druid Ascendancies. We got to see Oracle and Shaman. They both sort of seem... Oracle seems very castery. Shaman seems hybrid caster, feral forms. And if you just want to be a big bear that slams, Titan Warrior might actually wind up being the move. Don't know. We'll see. I'll also mention that we have... a leveling and in-game guide up, more like long-form written guide for the Poison Pathfinder over on PoE Vault. Ultimately, like, whichever one you prefer, check them out, support us, all that. Alright, so that's all the class changes we really wanted to cover. In terms of the league mechanic, it is this Vaal temple that you craft to go fight Itziri. She looks like quite an interesting boss. They did spend some time showing her off, and that was very cool. It sort of looks like a mixture of like Synthesis and Incursion, and maybe like actually quite a lot of early days of Syndicate Betrayal. Like, it looks like you're going to set up a board and kind of try to lock that in. Like, you'll do the boss a bunch of times. Once you've decided you're done doing the boss or whatever, you'll set up a board, and then you will just simply like farm things over and over again. They've made everything tradable from the start, and unlike, say, Itziri or Atzawaddle temple trading in PoE 1, where you have to trade the whole temple, you're able to just like grab the double corrupt and trade it off. Also, the double corrupt is very different in this league. So the way it works is you have to use them on a corrupted item. So here we go, right? Like, you'll corrupt an item, it'll roll well, then you'll take it over to the thing that you found in the temple that can double corrupt, essentially corrupt a corrupted item. And it's like, seems like a 50-50 shot to just destroy this well-rolled corrupted item or corrupt it and get a good roll. So, like, you can see, like, a really, really interesting body armor here, like, lots of potential for, like, insane high-level gear, but also, like, deleting really well-rolled stuff. So that's, like, a gambler's gamble, which is pretty fun. I think that's, yeah, we're big fans of this, right? Gambling on top of gambling is exactly what PoE is all about. Alright, so with that all being said, now let's hit on some of the league mechanic in-game stuff that has changed that is... good, and then we'll talk about some of the stuff that's not as good. Tablets are just going to have a max of 4 modifiers, like you can regal and exalt a tablet. One other thing I just wanted to jump over here too was they did talk about this item that can corrupt tablets, and you can see this is a 5 mod tablet, so there's potential maybe that we could get like 5 or 6 mod tablets even, which is like the potential for high level juice in like high level maps is definitely going to be higher than it ever was before. So they've also done a bunch with tablets. They've gotten rid of quantity as a tablet prefix, which is fine. They've basically taken the low end of all of the different modifiers, like rarity, pack size, magic monsters, rare monsters, whatever. They've raised the low level up on all mods by like a bunch. They haven't raised the high end, but that's fine. Ultimately, it's just like less of a difference between good and bad rolls, and they've kind of opened up a lot more potential with Quant not being one of the options. It's just like rarity, rare monsters, magic monsters, and then they've done some other stuff that I'll get to here in a second that's like made this a lot more appealing to run something other than just, okay, it's rarity and rare monsters. Then the next big thing is what they've done with Delirium, and so this is kind of the new approach to Delirium. You can see there's some Delirium fog around the outsides of the screen, but it's nowhere close to the way that it was like completely choking out the middle of the screen and obscuring like ground effects and stuff like it used to before, and also like messing with your GPU and stuff. So they've really improved the visibility with Delirium being around, and then also they've completely removed the ability to have Delirium anointing on maps at all. This is somewhere in this giant wall of text. Who cares, right? Ultimately, you're no longer able to, here it is, Waystones can no longer be instilled with liquid emotions at all. So Deli Orbs as a mechanic are no longer in PoE 2. Instead, it's only Delirium Mirrors, and then they've reworked a lot of the Delirium Mirror-related Atlas notables to make them more appealing. This one is really quite nice. Magic monsters, like getting extra Delirium mods, getting extra rarity, that's great. This node in particular is really, really interesting. Isn't it tempting? Now we'll make it so that currency that would drop from Delirium monsters is instead stolen by the map boss, and then you have a 20% chance for each of those currency items to get duplicated when you kill the map boss if it's under the effects of Delirium. So, this means that you are committing to, like, speed clearing the map, but full clearing it so you're killing all the monsters, getting a currency to drop, and then killing the boss. So it's like a pretty big gamble, but the reward is 20% more currency. That's pretty good, especially if it winds up duplicating, like, Divine Orbs or Hinakora's Locks or something. So there's really, really high like risk-reward potential, and that's great. Delirium is like fun. This is one of our favorite mechanics in PoE 1. Delirium mirrors and speeding through maps. Full clearing, but speeding through and blasting the boss. And yeah, the Maven's not here yet, but you know, like this is very much in line with that preferred strategy that we love so much. And then also you've got It's Not Real, you know, you get some more reward out of our monsters, you know, quantity, manifesting Delirium Demons. So it looks like there's a lot more potential for the Delirium tree, at least, to be a lot more interesting, and for, like, mirrors to actually be, like, a real mechanic instead of something that only exists to get you started on installing emotions into maps and then using those all the time. Alright, so that's all the positives. Now for the negatives. That's kind of it for the in-game revamp. Where is the in-game revamp we were waiting for? Unfortunately, it's in patch 0.5, right? Like, sorry, it kind of sucks, but, you know, it is what it is. Also, rarity on gear is still there for now. They haven't done anything to kill that. They haven't done, like, a huge pass on monsters. They haven't done a huge pass on, like, rogue exiles or wisps either. Like, ultimately, a lot of things that people weren't really in love with in the in-game are still there. None of this is super surprising. Not to be a smug, I told you so, because I didn't. But this was like the least teaser season that we've gotten in a while, and it kind of makes sense now. We probably should have seen this coming. Ultimately, they have a really fun-looking class in the Druid, a really good-looking League mechanic in this Fate of the Vaal, and like adding double corrupting in a way that's like really fun and cool, and doesn't just totally invalidate Vaal orbing gear either, which is something that's nice. And then also they got a bunch of balancing out, and they got it all out before the winter break. And to be honest, we're really happy. They buffed the hell out of Pathfinder, which is like, that's our bread and butter, right? And they buffed it in a huge way. So, you know, this is good news. I wouldn't really be surprised if they push for patch 0.5 to be the big one, all caps, before releasing the game with patch 1.0 in August of 2026. Could be wrong. Maybe it's a patch further out than that. Either way, a lot of people are saying that they're going to treat this like a 2-week league or whatever, which is fine. Spend some time with family at Christmas or whatever. That works. We'll be gaming, though. The league mechanic looks great, our favorite builds look better than ever, and we're very hyped up about that. Okay, question time. Simple one, too. What is your favorite animated TV series? We just immediately both spit it out. Ours is Futurama. That's it. Super easy. It's goated. All-time great show. There you go. Alright, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord, and become part of our community. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us and help us make more PoE content, consider becoming a channel member. Thanks for watching. Bye.